Hi there, this is Michael Tonis. Let's learn how to draw the word love in block letters. You're going to need paper, a ruler, a pencil, and a marker and an eraser. So to begin with, we're going to need to draw a base line and a top line for drawing our block letters. So go ahead and use your ruler to draw a baseline. Then I'm going to measure up 2 inches on this piece of paper. You need to adjust that spacing accordingly for the size of your paper. And there we have a top line. Now, like I said, we're going to draw the word love, L-O-V-E, and that is 4 letters. So to the left of center will be the O, and to the right of the center will be V. And spacing it out this way helps you make sure you get your word in the center of your paper. And of course the E, and then over here the L. And at any time, feel free to pause this video and go ahead and catch up, but I'll be moving pretty quickly through the steps here. So the O is a tough letter, and we're going to go ahead and find the center of this circle here. And the curves on the O are going to come out a little above and below the line, and they'll all fit in a box. So this is one way to help you get the curves correct on your letter. Alright, now we're going to draw in this upper curve here, and then on the lower side, changing the position of your hand as needed in order to get that curve drawn correctly. And you see that little triangular space there, that's going to help you because you can compare that as you look in each corner to see if you're getting roughly the same, ideally you want the same space in each corner. And just continue to make corrections. And now for the center, you can use this crossbar here to divide your center circle into quarters, just like that. So that that center cross just really helps you get that spaced properly. And we'll continue to just refine that a little bit there. Now the V, you're just going to widen this stick letter and create the wider strokes for the letter. Just like that. The V is a pretty simple letter to work out. And fill in the horizontals there on the bottom. And now we're going to work out the tops here. Okay, the spacing right here between the letters, you want that to be roughly the same as what's between the O and the V. That forms a certain area, and so you want to make that letter pretty tight to the V. And we're going to figure out how long the E is going to be, the thickness of the strokes, and create the top and the bottom, and then a smaller center stroke for the E. Now the L, again, you want to just work out the thickness of the stroke, make sure it feels like it matches the other letters. And same with the left to right bottom stroke there. And again, just the length as needed to feel like you're getting the same kind of spacing that you are between the different letters. Now the spacing between letters, we call that kerning, and that goes all the way back to when type was done with metal letters, and they put kernels of grain between the letters. So that kerning right there, K-E-R-N-I-N-G, is the letter spacing. Now we're going to clean these up a bit. This would be a good time to pause your video and catch up before we move on to the inking. Alright, now we're going to take our marker. Now I'm using a Sharpie marker, but you can use any black marker. And I'm going to just go ahead and go over these strokes. Now, people say sometimes I can't draw a straight line, and first of all, that's really probably not true. But secondly, it does take a little practice to draw lines or curves and to control your hand. So just keep practicing and don't give up. Another thing about hand-drawn letters is it's going to have a little bit of irregularity in it, and that's part of what makes them look hand-drawn rather than being made by a computer. So notice again that changing the position of my hand and arm in order to draw the curve comfortably. You can also feel free to rotate your paper rather than rotating your arm. Most often it helps to draw towards yourself rather than pushing the pen away from yourself. So again, pulling down, I'm pulling down towards myself. And in these cases, I'm pretty much locking my wrist, and for the shorter strokes using my wrist, but for the longer strokes, I'm locking my wrist and pulling my arm down. So here you see I'm moving the whole arm and just locking my wrist. And the shorter ones, just sort of rolling along the edge there. Again, that's a locked wrist, pulling straight down. The shorter ones I can do with my fingers and my wrist. And we're just about done with this stage, and when we get this completed, we're going to do a 3D lettering effect. So you'll want to probably again pause the video and get caught up to this stage before we go on to the next phase. So right now we'll be erasing. That'll give you a little time, and we'll get these letters all cleaned up for the next stage. All right, that's looking really nice. That kneaded eraser does a great job just picking up the graphite. And the paintbrush is a handy tool to wipe off the eraser garbage. And if you need to touch up anything, just take your marker and touch up some curves. Like I said, it's very hard to draw a perfect circle or perfect lines, and so you don't want to try to be perfect, just want to be focused on creating good looking letters. So now I'm getting ready to do the 3D effect. We're going to do a 3D effect down to the lower left, and so we need a baseline for that 3D effect. And we'll go ahead and draw that in just slightly below the letters, and we'll find a similar spacing off to the left. Alright, so in order to make that look 3D, we're going to draw an angled line from the corners, and the L will be a very easy letter to do because it's a very straight letter. So you see how that works? Now the O, that's a little tricky. We've got that little bit of space there. We've got to figure out how far it's going to come over to the side. And what's going to happen with the O is first we can sort of draw a copy of that curve. We're going to have that continue right around there. And it's really just like another O dropped back behind the O that we already have. So we want to come up from this edge now at an angle. We want to match the angle that we have on the L. And when I drew that O in the background, I actually drew it a little too large. So here I'm checking my angles. Like I said, this is tricky. But if you just follow the procedure and draw your angles like that, then let's fix this one up right here. Yep, erase that off. Okay. I'll match that angle. And then this is going to kind of roll right into there. Just like that right there. And we'll ink that in later and make some minor corrections, but I think you're getting the idea of how that extends back into space there, or at least gives the illusion that it extends back into space. Now on the inside of the O, we're going to have a certain distance that's going to come in, and we'll have the backside of that right there. So that curve will probably be a little flatter than what I've drawn, but it's going to give us the general effect. I'll just do that little cleanup there and finish that curve. So as you can see, I'm still sort of messing around with that to fix it. Now we can move on to the V. You know, your mind, if you look at something, your mind and your eye will sense if it's correct or not, and then sometimes you've just got to think about why is it not looking right, and then you can make those adjustments. And we'll do the same thing with the E that we did with the L. And here we're going to come back off of these parts here, and looks like we're really just about done with that. Ready to go to the inking phase. And we'll just carefully draw these lines. That's a good looking L. Now here I want to come right off the edge of that O, drop back, and then start making that curve. And the more of these you do, the easier it will get. And then we'll come back up here, curve, and then go into a straight line that reaches to the edge. And then do the inside. Now this line on the V, I can see, I can just sense it doesn't feel right. I need to check my angle, and you'll notice I don't have the angle quite right. So I'm going to correct that and make that a little steeper right there. That's better. And also that needs to be parallel with the edge of the V, which again, it's not absolutely perfect, but you know, you can just make that part of the lettering style, part of the design, unless you're going for perfection, and then by all means probably just do the whole thing with rulers and not with your hand. But I can tell you it's going to have a different feel in the end. It's going to feel much more mechanical. All right, so let's erase these structure lines that we've put in. And we're getting a little eraser garbage there, so we'll use our paintbrush to wipe that off. Be sure that your paintbrush is dry, of course. And now moving on to the shading, let's use our pencil, and we will lightly shade the sides and the bottom. And here we're going to have to taper a shade, and lighter, darker, lighter, darker. So we see what happens. The bottom is going to be darker than the sides because we're going to presume that the light's coming from above, and that's going to make the bottom darker. So first we'll shade in the side here, and going for a medium tone, and then we'll hit the bottom with more pressure and get that to be darker down there. So you can see how that looks. Gives some nice depth to the letters. And we'll go over that again just to make sure that's nice and dark. Alright, so here on the O, we want to start off quite light, using light pressure, and then we're going to increase the pressure as we come down around the side until we get near the bottom, when we're going to be pretty much using the full pressure that we can apply to the pencil to get the maximum amount of darkness. And again, we might go over that again to fill in some of those tiny gaps and make it even darker and taper up nicely. Inside the center of the O, we're going to reverse the process and go from dark to light. because remember, the upper part of that inside is going to be the one that's in the most shade. All right, and here we'll start light and or start medium and just work our way down to the bottom pretty much consistently. But because these letters are up close to each other, we can come in here with the medium tone and add a little darker tone right there. Shade that a little more where those letters are close to each other. All right, now the bottom of this V is going to be nice and dark, so press down a little harder. And right in here, this angle is maybe a little more exposed to light, so we won't make it quite as dark. A little bit of darkness right there in the base of the V where the light is getting absorbed because it bounces around more. Okay, go medium tone here on the side of the E. Again, we can just fill that in, and then we can add a little bit of a darkness here where the V might cast a shadow or absorb more light that's bouncing off the E. So, and down here darker yet. And this is going to be quite dark right in here. Not a lot of light getting in there. Not a lot of light getting in there. So this pretty much completes our lesson on how to draw love in block letters. And we've added a 3D effect. And I hope you can use this technique to draw the word love for yourself, a friend, or go ahead and draw your name in block letters with a 3D effect. And have a good time drawing.